She's got a text sitting in her drafts right now that she's never going to send you. And here's the strange part. That unsent text is the loudest thing she's ever said about you. Stick with me, because at the 13-minute mark, I'm going to tell you exactly what that text usually says, and why the fact that she never hit send is actually the strongest evidence you'll ever get. But first, we need to talk about something almost nobody explains correctly. Why a woman who is quietly obsessed with a man will often look like the least interested person in the room. Most men are taught to read interest the way you'd read a stock ticker. Up is good, down is bad. She texts fast, that's up. She goes quiet, that's down. Simple, clean, and almost always wrong. Because female attraction doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in spirals. Pulled in by desire, pushed back out by self-protection. Pulled in again. And the woman who's spiraling the hardest toward you is frequently the one working the hardest to look like she isn't. Here's something most guys never notice. When a woman starts developing real feelings for a man, one of the first things that happens isn't excitement. It's threat detection. Her brain runs a background check on the risk. Will this make me look needy? Will this give him leverage? Will I be the one left holding the bag if this goes nowhere? That threat detection doesn't cancel the desire. It just puts a mask on it. And that mask is what you're actually looking at most of the time. I want you to notice something specific in the next few minutes because it directly ties into what happens at the 6-minute mark. Watch for a moment where a woman does something that copies you. A phrase, a habit, an opinion, but insists it was already hers. Keep that in the back of your mind. We're coming back to it. Sign 1. She overcorrects around you. This is different from just being distant. Overcorrecting means she works visibly hard to appear unaffected. She laughs a beat too loud at something unrelated when you walk by. She suddenly gets very interested in her phone the second eye contact lasts too long. Psychologist Daniel Goleman's research on emotional regulation describes this as a form of affect suppression, actively managing outward expression to hide an internal state that's actually running hot, not cold. The tell isn't the coldness, it's the effort behind the coldness. Genuine indifference takes no effort at all. Overcorrection takes constant, visible work. If you're watching someone work that hard to look unbothered, you're watching someone who is, in fact, very bothered. I told you to remember something a minute ago. Here it is, sign 2. She quietly absorbs you while denying it out loud. She'll start using a phrase you say often, but she'll swear she's always said it. She'll develop a sudden appreciation for a show, a band, a hobby you're into, but frame it as something she found completely on her own. Social psychologists call this unconscious behavioral mimicry, and researcher Tanya Chartrand's foundational work on the chameleon effect found that people unconsciously mirror the behavior of those they feel emotionally connected to. It's not a conscious choice, it's a byproduct of closeness. The layer most men miss is the denial part. When the mimicry is paired with a refusal to credit you, that's not coincidence. That's her ego stepping in behind the mirroring to keep the vulnerability invisible, even to herself. Now, here's a mid-script question for you. Think about someone in your life right now. Has she ever picked up something of yours? A word, a joke, a taste, and claimed it was hers first? Drop a comment with what it was. I want to see how common this actually is. Sign 3. She remembers what she claims not to care about. You mentioned something small in passing. An old injury, a nickname from childhood, a throwaway preference. Weeks later, it resurfaces, delivered casually, like it means nothing. But she got it exactly right, and she got it right without being reminded. Memory researchers have long known that emotionally salient information gets prioritized for long-term storage. This goes back to foundational work from psychologist Elizabeth Loftus on how emotional weight shapes what the brain chooses to keep. A detail that means nothing doesn't survive 3 weeks in someone's memory. Only details that were flagged as important survive that long. So when she recalls something small with total accuracy while insisting it's no big deal, you're looking at a direct contradiction between her words and her neurology, and the neurology is the one telling the truth. I mentioned a real story earlier. Here it is. A viewer wrote in about a woman he'd been seeing casually for 2 months. She never liked a single one of his posts, never commented, nothing. He assumed she genuinely wasn't checking. Then one night she referenced a caption he'd changed and deleted within 10 minutes of posting it. something almost nobody would have seen unless they were watching in real time. She never engaged publicly. She watched constantly and privately. That's not disinterest. That's surveillance with the volume turned all the way down. And it's one of the clearest signals in modern dating that most men completely miss because they're only counting likes. Sign 4. She tests your reaction more than she asks direct questions. A short reply. A joke about another guy. A sudden vague plan that may or may not include you. These moments aren't about information gathering. She's not actually trying to find out if you're seeing someone else. She's watching how you carry the uncertainty. Relationship researcher John Gottman's work on emotional bids found that how a partner responds to small, ambiguous moments predicts long-term connection far more than how they respond to big, obvious ones. A woman testing your composure isn't playing games in the shallow sense. She's running a stability check, because stability is the single trait she can't verify through words alone. Only your behavior under mild pressure proves it. Here's the 9-second rule I mentioned earlier. Psychologists studying nonverbal attraction have found that when someone holds eye contact roughly 2 to 3 seconds longer than a neutral social exchange requires, and does it more than once in a short window, it correlates strongly with romantic interest rather than casual friendliness. Stack 3 of those extended glances inside a 9-second span of conversation, and you're no longer looking at politeness. You're looking at someone checking again and again whether you notice her. Sign 5. She creates private references, then acts like they don't exist. An inside joke, a phrase only the two of you use, a moment neither of you has explained to anyone else. Then days later, when you bring it up, she brushes past it fast, like it's nothing worth lingering on. Shared private language is one of the strongest predictors of pair bonding that relationship researchers track. Couples and early-stage romantic pairs who develop their own vocabulary show measurably higher relational closeness than those who don't, according to communication studies on idiomatic couple speech. She's not creating that language by accident, and she's not forgetting it either. She's protecting it. The fastest way to make something feel small is to talk about it like it's small. That's exactly what she's doing. Now let's go back to that unsent text. Here's the pattern, almost word for word, that shows up over and over when men describe finding drafts or half-typed messages a woman never sent them. It usually isn't dramatic. It's something like, "I keep thinking about what you said," or "I don't know why I still think about this," or sometimes just his name, typed and deleted again. The reason it never gets sent isn't that the feeling isn't real. It's that sending it would remove her plausible deniability. As long as it stays unsent, she can still tell herself she hasn't given anything away. The moment it's sent, it's evidence, and evidence is exactly what her ego is working overtime to prevent. And that brings us to the one mistake that undoes all 5 signs at once. The instant a man notices this pattern and decides to expose it, calling her out, pointing out the mirroring, mentioning the memory, forcing her to admit what's obvious, her ego doesn't soften. It hardens immediately, because now the thing she was protecting is public. And pride will choose self-protection over honesty almost every single time once it's cornered. The correct move isn't exposure, it's steadiness. You don't need to prove you've noticed. You need to keep being consistent enough that she eventually stops needing the mask at all. If even one of these 5 signs sounded familiar, don't just keep scrolling. Hit that like button right now, because it genuinely helps this channel reach more men who need to hear this instead of chasing the wrong signals. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this one. We post new psychology content regularly. And drop a comment telling me which sign hit closest to home, sign 1 through 5. I read these, and I want to know which pattern you're seeing in your own life right now. Here's the real takeaway. A woman's ego isn't your enemy in this. It's not working against you. It's working to protect her from a version of vulnerability she hasn't decided is safe yet. Your job was never to tear that mask off. It was to become the kind of steady, unbothered presence that makes the mask feel unnecessary in the first place. Stay calm, stay consistent. Let her come to that conclusion on her own time. That's how this actually plays out in real life, not through pressure, but through patience that never wavers.